I think that's a really important aspect to be noticing about yourself, especially when you're engaging with your kids, being able to call that out and being able to say that, figuring out what we need to be able to be okay.
You're listening to the Connected Parenting Minute with Will and CarrieAnn Standfest. This podcast is a conversation about parenting, using connection first, trauma-informed principles. Because when you lead with connection, everyone feels seen, which is the foundation to a more peaceful home. This podcast reminds you that you don't have to be a perfect parent, but we can all get a little better, one connected parenting minute at a time.
Hello and welcome back to the Connected Parenting Minute podcast. My name is Will Standfest, and I am so blessed that you have chosen to join us this evening. With me is, of course, the lovely CarrieAnn Standfest.
Hey, everybody. We're so excited to be back for season 3.
Season 3. It feels good to say, doesn't it, baby?
It absolutely does. I was just thinking about how much I enjoy the opportunity to talk over these things with you in this platform and be able to share some of the thoughts that we share between each other on a regular basis.
I know. We've had so many people pour into us over the years that we just feel blessed to have an opportunity to share those things with each and every one of you. This podcast is to help you, our listener. I want you to come out of this podcast feeling a little encouraged, a little challenged, and just have something really practical that will help you in your relationship with your kiddos, helping you create the less stressed, more connected home that you dream of.
Absolutely. That's something, didn't exist when we first started parenting, like the whole podcast thing. I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
And just be able to have that, to be able to start listening and say, hey, I want to learn about this, or I want to hear these people's thoughts on this subject. I mean, the information that we have at our fingertips is astronomical. It's crazy.
It is pretty awesome.
So we feel really blessed that you've chosen to listen to our podcast.
Yes. So thank you for spending a few minutes out of your day joining us. And I hope these thoughts are helpful to you. This is season 3, like we said. And so we have a whole slate of episodes planned out for you. We are working our way through recording all of them. We've got a few new things we're going to try this season. We are going to do at least one interview.
Yay.
Maybe 2 or 3, depending how it goes.
Uh-huh.
You'll have to let us know. Send us feedback on what you think of the interview episodes, if you enjoy them or you don't. And as always, we do want to answer your questions. So if you have a question about parenting that you want answered on the podcast, reach out to us using info@connectedparentingminute.com. And we would love to do an episode specifically answering your question or unpacking a difficult situation you're dealing with at home.
We'll even keep you anonymous.
Absolutely.
All right. We should jump in to tonight's topic.
Yes. Tonight's topic is calm reactions. Emotional regulation through example.
Emotional regulation through example.
Fascinating topic.
It is a fascinating topic. I'm excited to dig into it. Our first point of tonight is that it is our responsibility to manage our emotions. That responsibility does not belong to our children.
Ooh, it's our responsibility to manage our emotions.
That one's hard.
Yeah, it is. This is episode 1 of season 3. This isn't like episode 8 or 9. Like you're just going to jump right into the deep end of the hard stuff.
We're going to jump right in because I think that it's super. I mean, we emphasize this a lot on the podcast of it starts with us.
Yeah.
And, our kids are just doing the best they can. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah, as I say, we're doing the best we can.
I know. But we're the adults. We're supposed to have it figured out.
I don't want to be the adult.
I know, but we are. It really does come down to us. We have to be willing to do the work, and we have to be willing to look at ourselves objectively and start seeing how the things that we do really affect our kids.
They really do. And I think a lot of us know this. I think each of us thinking back on our lives can come up with those situations where our parents said or did something that really impacted us. And as an adult, we can reflect back on that and say, maybe they weren't the world's worst person. They said that.
Right.
And maybe not. But that's the thing you have to kind of work through and get to that point to be able to recognize that. But understanding that then the torch has kind of been passed to us.
Yeah, exactly.
It's our responsibility now with our children.
Yeah. And, that piece, we say it's our responsibility to manage our emotions, but that responsibility isn't our children's responsibility. Because we think about, growing up, and maybe you're in a situation where you felt like the tension was in the air. You could feel it with your parents, and you start going, ooh, I better not ask my mom right now what we're having for dinner.
Or ask to go to the store, or ask to have a piece of candy.
Right? Because if, the children that have been in our home for a long time or that have been born to us, they can start to sense, hey, something's not right. And they can have a tendency to start feeling like I need to be tiptoeing around the situation.
Yeah. Or I need to disappear.
Right. And, granted, we all have our days.
We do.
But I think what we're trying to get across is that we can't let our children, that's not their responsibility to.
They shouldn't feel the weight of that.
Yeah, there we go. They shouldn't.
The weight of managing our emotions, where they feel like mom's in a mood again. I should say dad's in a mood again. I'm not trying to put this on you.
No, but it does. That is true. Our kids will tend to feel that when we're having a bad day. One of the situations that I remember as a kid that really vibrantly, I don't know if that's the right word. Vividly. There we go. I was looking for a V word. Vividly stuck out to me was I had these friends from church. Well, this one friend she was maybe my age, maybe a little bit younger, and they had a swimming pool. And I grew up in Virginia, so a swimming pool was a very coveted thing. Our family did not, and hardly ever went swimming, but I loved to swim or wanted to be in the water. I think I learned to swim in their pool too.
Oh, nice.
And so I would go over their house and spend the night. A couple times, I don't know, a month. It was frequently.
Yeah.
But I do remember just their parents would fight all the time. And it was normally after we were supposed to be in bed.
Yeah.
And there was just this, you knew, oh my gosh, these two adults are screaming at each other. And you go, I can't use the bathroom if I need to, or get a drink of water. Or there was a weight that was held with that of just I better just stay out of the way, stay, invisible.
Yeah.
To an extent. And there was such a heaviness that came with that. And I'm grateful I grew up in a home that was not normal.
Yeah.
But, that was just such an awkward situation for me. And I think I was 10 or 11 at the time.
Yeah. It makes you feel like you have to tiptoe around and not say the wrong thing. And people who grew up in emotionally unhealthy situations know exactly what we're talking about.
Right. Even if you didn't, there are still those times where you're like, ooh, that did not go well. Or,
or you've got that coworker, that moody coworker who you really need something from. But, you got to ask it the right way or at the right time, or else you're going to get a lecture or some condescending comments or whatever. And we don't want to do that to our children.
Right.
That is not theirs to carry. We have to be in the parent-child relationship. We're the parents, so we have to choose to be the adults in the situation and manage our emotions well. Right.
And so that's the kind of the why behind why we chose to talk about this topic, is kind of just setting up that there is a responsibility of our emotions, and that doesn't fall on our children. That falls on us.
Squarely on us. Before we jump into point number 2, we're going to take a quick break.
Hey, we're hitting the road this fall. Come out and say hello. We'll be leading a breakout session on connecting with your teens. First, join us at the Christian Alliance for Orphans, CAFO Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, September 18th through 20th. Also, don't miss the Replanted Conference in Chicago, October 24th through 26th. Visit cafo.org. That's CAFO.org and replantedministry.org to learn more and register today. Want to book us for your next event? Email us using info@connectedparentingminute.com. We'd love to work with you.
And now back to the show.
All right. So we've already talked about why it's not our children's responsibility to manage our emotions. Next really comes point number 2, which is modeling emotional regulation. We have to teach by example.
We have to teach emotional regulation by example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is this concept that, our kids are watching what we do.
They are watching everything we do.
And that's really scary.
If we're being honest, it is a little scary.
Yeah.
I don't know who checked my ID when they decided to give me a child and said, well, clearly you can handle it.
Right. I mean, seriously, walking in the hospital or I was rolled out and holding this baby and like, why do you think it's okay that we were pretty young parents too, like really young.
Yeah. Well,
but there is an importance that we have to set an example of emotional regulation.
Yeah.
And show our children what that looks like.
Right. And what we're looking to teach in here is how do we do this?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are all humans and we will all have big emotions. We will have lousy days. We will have a frustrating discussion with our spouse, with our child, whatever. These things are going to happen. So not pretending that we don't have big emotions is important.
Mm-hmm.
Owning the fact that I've had a really bad day today, and going back to point number 1, it's not your kid's job to fix that.
Right.
Right. But it is an important thing to articulate that. By you saying that I've had a bad day, and yet you are still engaging and you are still trying to connect with your kids or to connect with your spouse or find a healthy way to manage the fact that you've had a bad day and you need a little bit of downtime, your kids will normalize the experiences they have growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are able to come home from work and be like, oh, it was a rough day today. Daddy needs to sit on his chair and zone out for a few minutes, but then re-engage, not just I'm checking out for the day, I'm gone.
Right.
Because that's not what we want for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want our kids to normalize the idea that they had a bad day at work and so now they're just not going to talk to anybody for the rest of the night.
Right.
It's not something that most of us want to model for our kids, even if it's something we struggle with.
Right. And, that is it takes a lot of work on our part.
It really does.
Because we have to start looking at ourselves and going, what emotions am I feeling? How is this affecting my behavior?
Yeah.
And how can I basically stop the rocking boat in a sense from like going crazy? It seems like sometimes you can be having a bad day with, something over here, or somebody said something unkind to you, or, you felt rejected by somebody or something like that. And it starts this motion of being upset or being frustrated. And then your kid comes to ask you a question and then it gets out of control.
Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking, but I don't know if that analogy completely works. That's all right.
It's all good. I think we know where you're going though. It's just this idea that not letting one bad thing derail your whole day and kind of set you down a path where it just spirals and there's no hope of recovery.
Right. Well, there's an element of catching it while it's low in the sense. We've talked about this before too on the podcast of when you start noticing that not great feeling in yourself, because we talked about it in the concept of kids, of observing and saying, ooh, I know this is going down a bad path. How can we derail it before it gets there?
Yeah.
But I think there's a really important aspect to be able to notice that in ourselves.
Yes.
And when we can notice that in ourselves and start going, oh man, that person really hurt my feelings. And it rocked my day. What can I do to make sure that I'm going to be okay?
Mm-hmm.
Even if that's just saying it out loud, you call somebody, you tell your spouse, there's so many things that we can do to help negate the lie that this is going to wreck us,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that's a really important aspect to be noticing about yourself. And, and especially when you're engaging with your kids, being able to call that out and being able to say that, figuring out what we need to be able to be okay.
Yeah. And I honestly think I really like the term. It feels like a new schooly fancy term, but I really like this term dysregulated in this moment, in this situation, because you're trying to catch yourself when you're dysregulated, not when you've flipped your lid and you've blown it and you're freaking out with the kids or with whatever's going on. That's that kind of concept of catching it low, is you're trying to feel, you notice what's going on inside of yourself where you're feeling dysregulated, you're feeling out of sorts, you're feeling like, this day is not going in a good direction.
Right.
And catching that and then trying to figure out what things you can do to manage that, to help yourself get back to a place where you're feeling regulated, where you're feeling kind of centered and in the place that you want to be mentally and emotionally.
Right. One of the things as a mom, and as a mom who's had many, many children, I've
Only
noticed
8. It's not that many.
But I've basically gone through 6 pregnancies.
Yeah.
And there is a whole heck of a lot that goes on hormonally that totally blows things up sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I was sick with so many of our pregnancies, and that really affected how I felt, and not recognizing how I can meet my own needs to be able to meet the needs of my children was, you know, a work in progress, right? Now I look back at it and like, oh, I could have done this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, that's not a problem anymore. So we're good. But, you know, and a problem not as in the babies, but as in like not feeling good.
The dysregulation.
Yeah. And, you know, so being able to be aware of our own needs and what we can do to help ourselves be in a good spot.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's just, you know what, this day is not going to go well. Y'all can put on a movie. We're going to go to bed early and call it a day. But just knowing that if you engage, it's going to go sideways.
Yeah.
So you just pull back a little bit and say, we're going to keep the peace a little bit.
You don't have to participate in every fight you're invited to.
Exactly.
Okay. So now we've spent some time working on ourselves, trying to understand how we get emotionally regulated, being able to kind of verbally call that out, saying, I've had a bad day. I'm upset about something going on at work. I'm upset about a personal relationship. Being able to verbalize those things and making that verbal processing piece normalized for your kids. And now we're trying to find things that we can do to regulate ourselves, whether that's a glass of water or a walk or reading a book or a power nap. Lots of options out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Well, now that we've started to understand our own emotional regulation and helping our children catch what we're doing, we are able to start empowering our children with healthy coping strategies, which is point number 3.
Empowering our children with healthy coping strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the key piece we're trying to get at here is more is caught than taught with our kids. For us to come to our kids who had a bad day at school, maybe they missed lunch, maybe lunch was gross and they didn't eat it.
Right.
Or there was some situation on the bus or in the hallway between classes. They come home, they're dysregulated and they blow up at us or lose it. It comes out sideways, you know, or at a sibling. We've all been there. We can picture this middle schooler or teenager coming home having a bad day, kind of coming out sideways. What we want to see in that situation is a kid who is able to say, oh, I had a bad day. I need a snack, or I need to zone out and listen to some music, and just be able to say that.
Right. Or I had a bad day. Help me figure this out.
I mean, that's what we want.
Right.
Right. And the only way that a kid is going to get there is if we are modeling that.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're going to catch that. A lot of our kids can read us like a book. As much as we don't want to admit it, they probably can.
Yeah.
And so when they see us in those stressed out, overwhelmed, exhausted situations, they're watching how we react, how we manage our own emotions and feelings and all the things that are going on in those moments. By us modeling healthy coping strategies, that is the way that our children are going to learn these.
Right. And that also points out the importance of being able to call out those emotions, because it feels really awkward, I would say, to go, I'm having a bad day because X, Y, and Z. But when you are calling those out, your child sees that maybe something's going on. They sense that dysregulation.
Yeah.
And they hear you calling that out. Or as your children, I mean, calling it out in your children too can be very beneficial.
You got to be careful.
Right. In a positive way. I noticed you seem a little upset, or I'm wondering if your feelings are hurt right now by what your siblings said.
Yeah. I think that's a really key point. Our kids are not going to be good at this.
No.
So helping them through this process of identifying and calling out and naming some of the feelings that they're having, these big feelings that will feel a bit scary, right? Helping them walk through that process, I think begins with us noticing and being curious.
Right.
Right. So if we can say, I wonder if you're feeling a little embarrassed at that situation. Or I wonder if you're just exhausted. Are you just mentally exhausted today? Like, does your brain feel like it just doesn't want to do any more things?
Right. I think one of the things too is we can make, like you were saying, observations.
Yeah.
Seems like you kind of feel a little down today. Something happened on the bus, or, you have to ask kind of specifically sometimes, because especially with teens, you're going to get the, I don't know, or that's fine. And so you have to be asking in a way that's curious.
Yes.
I wonder.
Because it feels accusatory.
Right.
There'll be a wall. They'll shut down.
Yeah.
But if you can come across curious.
I wonder how things are going in the bus lately. Or I wonder how that, your science test went today.
Yeah.
I know you were a little concerned about that. And you have to know your kid too. There's a lot of things that we can come up with as far as asking good questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And another key piece about that too is you don't have to get it right.
No.
As your kid gets comfortable having these discussions, and it may not be immediately, we have had situations where we say, boy, I wonder if you're really embarrassed about that. I'm not embarrassed about that. I'm mad. Well, look at that. We just named him an emotion.
Right.
And that's good.
Right.
That is what we are looking for, is to help them kind of process and identify what's going on inside themselves, so that we can go back to this. Well, when I'm upset, sometimes I drink a glass of water.
Right.
Or you can just say, hey, would you like a glass of water, baby?
Right.
Or why don't you come with me? Here's the even better one. Here's the next level playing chess game. I'm really frustrated. Your kid's saying something, whatever. It's like, hey, baby, I'm really thirsty right now. Why don't you take a walk with me and get a glass of water? Okay.
Right.
And you're A, inviting them into relationship. B, you're modeling, I'm expressing a need that I have, and I'm going to go meet my need.
Right.
And then C, you're taking a walk. D, you're getting a glass of water. Like, there's all kinds of little things that are going on here that you can be inviting them into relationship and modeling healthy kind of management of their own behavior while helping them practice things that will help them regulate and manage their emotions.
Right. We have to be leading the way in this for our kids.
Absolutely.
And I think we tend to forget that because, we feel all of our things and we know they feel all their things. But really, this is going to help our children long term be able to cope. And hopefully when they're adults and they have children, this just comes naturally to them.
Yeah.
And then their children benefit from it.
Well, and even their relationships.
Right.
With their significant other, with their spouse or with their boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever stage of life they're in, being able to call out and manage big emotions in a healthy way, it will just benefit all of those relationships as well.
I agree 100%. Well, we're coming to the end of our time here tonight, and we just want to do a quick recap of our 3 points for this episode. So point number 1 is that it is our responsibility to manage our emotions. That burden should not fall on our children.
Absolutely.
All right. Point number 2, modeling emotional regulation. We need to be teaching that by example.
Do I have to?
Right. Hey.
Yes. Teaching by example. More is caught than taught.
Yeah. And then our final point of the evening is that we need to be empowering our children with healthy coping strategies, being proactive in finding ways that will help them as an individual figure out what they need to be able to meet their needs.
Yes, because that's what it's about. We're trying to help our kids learn to meet their needs in healthy, well-adjusted ways.
Yep.
Because we all have emotions, and we're not going to hide from that.
No, and it's good to express them and be able to figure out what they are and how to manage them.
All right. Well, we want to thank you, listener, for tuning into our podcast today. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day, and I hope that you've gotten value or enjoyed the podcast. If you have, do us a favor and tell one of your friends about it, and it would just help us get the message out to more people. Feel free to send any questions, comments, or encouragement to info@connectedparentingminute.com. And before we go,
we want to remind you that you don't have to be a perfect parent,
but we can all get a little bit better, one connected parenting minute at a time.
Thank you so much for listening to my mom and dad's podcast. It means a lot to me. Make sure to like and subscribe on the way out.
For more parenting tips or to connect with us, check out the Connected Parenting Minute on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Or you can send us an email using connectedparentingminute@gmail.com.